All right, wonderful. So thanks everyone for joining today. It's meeting 26 of the Core Devs Biweekly call. We have a jam-packed agenda today, so I will ask that if you have an item on the agenda, do please be cognizant of the time so that we can fit everyone in. And if there's nothing else up front, then why don't we jump in with the Lotus team?
Sounds good. Do we have Jennifer here on the call? I think we do.
I don't think so.
That's fine. She flagged that she might be late, and so shared her update that I can provide in half a second. Sorry. Perfect. So Jennifer flags that in terms of Lotus, V1.11.2 has been released. This is one that we were excited to get out for a while. Basically improves a bunch of market side things. So deal making gets vastly better, and now we have DAG Store is now live in the Lotus release, which folks are excited about. I can share information about the DAG Store project. I think we've talked about it a couple times here already. The 1.11.3 release train has begun. So this includes some dependency updates, including the latest version of proofs. And so that's going through the testing process and will become a release in a couple of weeks. The other thing she wanted to flag, I don't think anyone here will be super interested in this, but Lotus used to have this feature called Chain Watch, which basically was a chain analytics tool that we've been using. It's largely been deprecated over time, and by this point, we're just officially dropping support for it because it's been replaced by better things such as Sentinel, which is what a lot of our monitoring works on. If anyone was using ChainWatch, because it did have some external customers, flag that it is now officially deprecated, and yeah, and so support for that will not be, it won't be maintained moving forward. But that's about it from the Lotus side of things, I think.
Great. And Aayush, we connected offline, but since Dragon is unable to take the call, I'll also keep meeting notes today. So if anyone else has anything to add afterwards, you can send them my way on GitHub. All right, Boris team.
Hey, yeah, so yeah, the last 2 weeks have been a little bit slow. There were statutory holidays, company-wide holidays, but you know, same as last time, we're still making a push towards our first release. It's polishing up a bunch of stuff, fixing some consensus issues, and doing more product research for, you know, the next year roadmap kind of thing. And yeah, keeping it quick. Yeah.
Awesome. Fuhan, over to you.
Thank you. So not so many updates for us also. We've been working on the last meeting. I mentioned that our deadline, well, our goal is to release 1.0 by 10th of September. The deadline will probably, will definitely slip for at least 1 week. The reason for that is the audit hasn't been finished in time, so we're not sure that it's a good idea to release without an audit. And we have at least 2 issues that we are aware of, and we'll be fixing it this week. So hopefully the deadline will not slip for 2 weeks, and we'll be able to make it in 1 week. But there is a possibility that we'll need 2 more weeks. Otherwise, nodes both InteropNet and mainnet ones are stable. We're also introducing some improvements from a security perspective into our API, adding resolve tokens authorization to the API, and basically the same way as it's done on the Lotus miner, actually. So we are assuming that we want to be fully compatible, both in terms of the API itself and the way the API is accessible. So there are supposed to be no problems with that. Otherwise, nothing major, just pushing forward towards the release.
Sounds great. And last but not least, the Venus team. Any updates?
Yeah, hello everyone. The Venus team is still took a lot of time on the incubation program. Yeah, in last 2 weeks we supported a few new clients connected to the incubation system. So far we totally received over 70 applicants, and currently about 10 nodes and have been alive. We are still moving on for this, and also we start to prepare for the incubation program milestone 2. In milestone 2, we will launch the Venus Master Program. We hope that have more technical person to join the program and to provide the technical support for small and medium miners. This is about the whole thing about the incubation program. And at the same time, we are working on 2 modules development. One is about the Venus market. We have a target to have the Venus market module available to use within this month. So currently, after about a few weeks development, we had done the basic module coding, and we hope we could start to test it within next week. I think it's good. It's on track, and also for the another part is about reward sharing implementation. Also, the major coding is done, and it's like the same progress. We hope we can test it in next week, and also we had done the Venus market document, which is about the design and the roadmap. We will upload it into the GitHub very soon for review. I think that's all for us. Any question?
Is there anything about the Venus market design you can share with the core implementers right now before actually, testing it with the community?
Yes. We will. And I'll check. Because I'm on travel, and I will check tomorrow. And if that is already done, and we'll upload into the GitHub, and I will share that in the share the link in Slack. Okay.
Yeah, sounds good. Thanks. I'm super looking forward to it.
Great. Thanks, Stephen. Are there any other questions for the Venus team or for any of the other implementation teams? All right.
I guess quick question for the Forest team. How's your node doing? I know that you were kind of having consensus and sync issues. Are you on syncing B13 on mainnet well at this point? Or?
No, I am still working through some of the stuff that came from the proofs library. So still debugging some consensus mismatches after catching some panics and stuff like that.
Awesome. So Dudley wasn't able to join us today, so there's no updates from the foundation side in reference to security or other concerns. Aayush and I were actually speaking yesterday, and we know that one of the challenges that we're going to have down the line is in coordinating different implementation release schedules for large BIP enhancements. And I think we're going to begin to work a little bit more strategically on addressing this for future improvements. So in the coming weeks, I'm actually going to be reaching out to each of the implementation teams to see if we can meet one-on-one to discuss a little bit more about your sort of internal team organization and internal planning to see what kind of tools we can deploy to help coordinate, again, those large-scale improvements that are going to be arriving much sooner rather than later. So be on the lookout for the Slack messages to come through. All right. If there's nothing else anyone wants to bring up ad hoc, then I think, Aayush, it's back over to you to talk about small and medium-sized network enhancements for the fall.
Sounds good. Yeah. Thanks, Kaitlin. Yeah. So this is stuff we've kind of been talking about in the background, and basically we need to like come to a decision and figure out, yeah, what we want to ship. Kind of couple of things that have changed. So what I would like to propose is to have a network upgrade, probably we're in the first half of September, probably the second half of October, that introduces a bunch of smaller improvements. Things that have changed to motivate that, nothing major, but the work on snap deals is going along well. I think we're kind of coalescing around a one message model for it. This is mostly coming from the proofs researchers who have a bunch of optimizations that they think will make the one message model feasible in the long run. Unfortunately, those optimizations are more work, so they're actively doing their cryptographic research magic to figure it out, which means that's not happening in 2021. Basically, that's going to be a 2022 Q1 2022 thing for the network itself. We'll have more updates from them in the following meetings, I'm sure. Given that, I think it's a good idea to try and get a lot of these improvements into the network soon, because the other kind of thing that's changed is honestly there's a lot more data coming onto Filecoin. This is like deal data coming onto Filecoin. This is the result of a few different things. I think obviously there's lots of outreach happening between the Foundation's efforts, the Lotus team's efforts, the various team efforts, and so on. Also, a lot of cool tooling is happening. I think estuary and Web3 storage are getting more and more popular. So all that to say, this is good. There's a lot more deal activity. But unfortunately, that means that it's also causing pain for storage providers who are accepting deals. And so a lot of these like minor improvements around getting deal success, making like smoothing out sharp edges around the deal making workflow will be kind of well received. So yeah, so that's kind of what's motivating this. I think all of the changes that are being proposed. So we opened a bunch of FIP PRs. I think various people opened some FIP PRs earlier this week and last week. All of the changes are fairly small. They're just little things that community members have kind of been pushing for, as well as some protocol improvements. And we'll talk about some real. Most, if not all of them, this week. There might be some a crypto econ FIP that'll be opened next week, maybe. But yeah, and these are all fairly non-contentious changes. I think for the most part, they're fairly obvious improvements. So what needs to be figured out is more around when we ship these changes and exactly which ones we want to get in. It's kind of a scoping and timeline decision as opposed to do we actually want these changes, because I think as we'll see they're all fairly good on the face of it. So yeah, so that's kind of setting the stage. And yeah, actually before we jump into the actual kind of FIPs that are open, what do people think about that? General feelings? And I guess in particular, anyone strongly opposed to the idea or have concerns about timeline? Okay, sounds good. In that case, yeah, Kaitlin, I don't know what you have next on the agenda, but maybe we start talking about some of these things that have been opened.
Yeah, I think so. So next on the agenda, we're going to go over a couple of FIPs that were recently opened. And then I know Aayush, you had asked to specifically talk about the tipset tiebreak rule that was proposed last November as one of those updates. So if you actually wanted to jump in and talk about that specifically, or we can skip to the 3 pull requests that were submitted otherwise.
Yeah, I think it makes more sense to start with the 3 deal related ones that Zen opened, because they're a little more meaty, I think. And
cool.
Sure. Yeah.
All right. Hey everybody. So yeah, I opened a few FIPs or FIP PRs. So yeah, I'll go over them pretty quickly. So the first one is something that actually Steven proposed almost a year ago. It's kind of long overdue. The very high level is that there are 2 withdraw balance messages in Filecoin actors. So there's the market actor and the miner actor. Both methods have the same semantics. They will withdraw as much as possible, but not necessarily the entire amount requested if the amount requested is more than can be withdrawn. It's useful for auditing to get the exact amount in the return value of the message. So we're adding in this FIP return value of the actual amount that was withdrawn. And that's about it for that. Yeah, next one, publish storage deals. If you have a batch of multiple proposals being published, and a single one errors, then the entire batch fails. This is problematic in a few ways. Just number one, if things are not going exactly right on your node and you're not filtering out errors as aggressively as you can, then this leads to more errors. This is something that people have been, storage providers that have been doing more deal handling have been bringing up for the past month or so. So it's good to handle from that regard. There is also an outstanding kind of unavoidable, somewhat security-ish issue where it's possible to overcommit as a client your proposals and cause storage providers to fail when they try to publish overcommitted clients, for example, who have funds that can only cover one deal but publish 2 deals. This tip would limit the blast radius of this kind of problem by not spoiling the entire batch if one client decided to do this to a storage provider. It doesn't address the issue entirely, but it helps with it. Yeah, so that's the general idea. And then final one, kind of in the similar vein, pre-commits as it stands, or I guess rather like proof commits as it stands will fail if any deal in the sector expires. So there is a way to make it so that this is not the case by adding a new parameter into proof commit sector and proof commit aggregate at the cost of a little bit of complexity. The main thing is including the expired deal piece info so that the data commitment can be computed and the proof can go through. So the idea is to allow this optional parameter to be passed in by storage providers who've seen that one of their deals has expired before they were able to proof commit. So the positive impact here is that storage providers can approve more sectors, even if things are a little bit out of their hand, like race conditions with deal expiry happen. And the other nice benefit is that other deals included in a sector with such an expired deal, they will still be able to be proven. So like one expired deal doesn't stop the line on all deals in a sector. Okay, so that was maybe more than I realized, but that's everything. I'm happy to go over questions. There are also PRs up for all these things that you can look at. Thanks.
Cool. Thank you, Zad.
Yeah, I've got a couple of questions. Regarding method 1, regarding the first item, just a quick sanity check. Yeah, so we're adding a new return type to these 2 methods, but return type, like the return value lives in message receipts, which is not strictly part of state, right? So regarding state size concerns, it's not, is it correct to say that it's not a reason to be worried?
Yeah, that is correct. There is, the message state does count for something. Probably, yeah, I don't really know the current state of what message data gets trimmed. It will add a small amount, but we're talking about a pretty small amount of data given the frequency of withdrawal being called.
Sounds good. And more importantly, that's like an implementation detail, right? Like as the Lotus implementation, we could choose to drop all, like not store a single receipt, and that would still be fine in terms of syncing the Filecoin blockchain and doing everything else. And you can recalculate these receipts anytime you want to. And get
yeah, that's an interesting question. I think there might be some subtleties, but I think that's more or less true.
Okay, sounds good.
Actually, that's a good question, Aayush. Or yeah, good point you bring up. I was just curious if the other implementations are like, just discarding old receipts or anything like that, or does everybody just keep everything right now? Just kind of curious.
Lotus keeps everything right now. I don't know if we have at least by default, I don't know whether we have an option to drop receipts or not. But we probably should because that's low-hanging fruit of stuff you can kill. Yeah, but do you know what y'all do? What do the other implementations do?
Keep it all.
Okay.
But I think it's much easier to, it'd be pretty easy to throw away all the receipts. Could be some precursor research to state pruning as well.
Yeah, maybe an easy optimization there if database sizes become more concerning next year. Cool. Yeah, second question I just had was about just in terms of complexity of implementation for teams that re-implement actors. Obviously, items 1 and 2 sound trivial. Add a new return or like just slightly change behavior in terms of failing. What's the amount of work involved for the third item, which sounds a little more involved?
Yeah, so item 1 is pretty trivial. So I already have a PR inspect actors that does it. It took like a day with good testing. The other 2, actually, the published storage deals one is a little bit trickier too. It's somewhere in between, but probably closer to the pre-commit expired deals one. Overall, I think it's safe to say I'm also doing some kind of design discovery as I go. So following along, I think it should be pretty easy within like 1 or 2 days for kind of doing the design stuff too. Yeah, like 3 days, 3 engineer days ish. These are rough estimates, but yeah, like kind of small to medium complexity.
Okay, sounds good.
Any other questions, Aayush, or anyone else? All right. So great. So the next thing on the agenda is actually a presentation of a proposal that came through. We're calling it the Filecoin financing proposal. Jennifer, I'm not sure if Kat is on the call. I just realized her email hadn't been added. Do you want to introduce this? I'm not sure if we'll be able to talk about it or not. I know you and her had spoken about the purpose of the presentation before.
Hunter? I actually am not aware of this saying.
Oh,
Hi guys, this is Catherine here. I think before I talked to Sonia, that's why some of you guys not aware of me, I think. Yeah, so you guys can hear me?
yeah, we can.
Okay, cool. So I'm Catherine from China. It's actually midnight Thursday, and me and my technical team, we are connected with phone, and we will try to answer the technical questions as we can, because we are speaking Chinese, and we will have to organize language words. And maybe if we cannot understand the language, understand the technical question, we will post the proposal later. Is that okay? Okay, so I'm going to talk about briefly talk about the financing plan. So the reason why we came up with this idea is because we are actually operating some pools for our customers, and we realize some smaller miners or pools, they are really hard to survive. So we are trying to help them to like raise money at the beginning. It's hard to like organize everything. It's pretty cost expensive at the beginning if you have to start up the Filecoin pool. So that's why we came up with the financing plan, and it's so I'm going to talk about several points or several process steps about the financing plan. So we first add 2 control address types for miners, which means on the basis of the worker or miner address, we add the financing address and the repayment freeze address. And second, we have a selling sector first determines whether the financing address has some balance. If the address has some balance, the sector will use the balance. If not, the selling sector will follow the original logic to process. And third, the financing plan will have some features like address, start time, end time, and total amount, and repayment amount, start time, and time for the repayment, and also repayment period option, which can be monthly, weekly, or daily. And also, during the repayment time, the miner balance is frozen to pay for the current repayment. And when the add up balance meets the repayment limit or requirement, the balance will be automatically transferred to the repayment freeze address. And fifth, only when the balance in the freeze repayment address has met the repayment amount, the miner's balance can be withdrawn and used. And six, when repayment time is about to end, repayment freeze address will automatically transfer the scheduled repayment amount into the financing investment address. I know all this information are pretty confusing, and I will post the link, the proposal link. Hold up, so just a moment.
Catherine, I was already able to
Yes.
drop in the link to your debt grant proposal. So if anyone wants to review, yeah, perfect.
Okay,
Thank you.
I just dropped it. Yeah, I think
Great.
it's pretty. I think it's kind of complicated. So if you guys have any question, ask, and I try to answer it. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for this. One first question I have.
Okay.
So we've worked in the past with people doing what I believe is a similar thing without making changes to the protocol. So there have been groups that have, I think it's currently just starting, but people have designed plans and technical solutions to use an owner address to accomplish basically the same thing. So like the lending party, either the lending party or a multi-sig controlled by the lending party, the storage provider, and a third party control the owner address, which then allows more control over getting back funds, but also funding the minor actor from the lender. Now, also, Aayush, maybe we'll have a more clear explanation of what I'm talking about, but I just wanted to know if you've thought about doing it this way instead of using a protocol change.
Can you sum up a little bit, like?
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah.
So I could also be missing the mark because I haven't read the proposal yet. But I think, as I understand it, the financing plan requires intermediating between a lender and a storage provider, and I just wanted to check in if you had considered doing this with the existing protocol. So instead of adding a new control address with certain on-chain guarantees, I was wondering if you had considered doing this with the existing owner address construction.
Okay. Do you mind if I, because it's more a technical question. I'm not sure how to answer right now. Is that okay if I post on the proposal later?
That's great. Yeah, and actually, what I'll do is I will just read through your proposal more thoroughly,
Okay.
and then if I still have the same question, I'll leave it on the PR.
Okay. Cool. I'm sorry, I cannot, like, I hope I can answer it, but I don't want to mislead you guys. So I
No
prefer
worries.
to talk with the technical team and get back to you guys later. I mean, yeah.
I have a quick question. It's oh whoa, what is that sound? Did you guys hear that? Am I crazy? Okay,
Oh.
there was like dun dun dun. Okay, never mind. Probably something in my 1 million browser tabs. Sorry. Yeah, so just like a high level question, just so I can understand like the gist of this. Is this essentially a loan program for miners so that they can pledge sectors? Is that like the high level gist of this?
What do you mean high level?
Is that like the high level summary of like this idea?
You mean what I just talked about?
Yeah, is it like basically just like what CoinList does? Because I think CoinList is able to give loans to people to pledge for sectors. I don't know if they still do it, but I remember they did it like months ago. And you just want to implement this on the protocol level? Is that the idea?
I don't think so. Like we came up with this idea ourselves. I don't think the technical team they is that what you mean? Like from another idea?
No, I mean, is this
Oh,
just
yeah.
sorry, Jennifer.
Yeah.
他的意思是问，你们设置这个是指传统的一些借贷的一些项目吗？然后你是想把一个借贷项目，把它在那个 protocol 协议里面实现是吗？
他写的不是一个借贷业务，其实类似于，就是因为个人或者是小的这些，他需要现在的这个需要100万，这些加长，那么如果
I think there is one engineer is answered this question, but it's very hard to hear about it. And anyone can hear that?
I think an async review of the proposal would be a good idea. Like I think
需要整个生态的这个容量的那个增加。
等一下，
就这个意思。
Okay.
I mean,
yeah.
let's just make something even more clear. I'm just going to say it. I know I'm brand new, but this kind of thing doesn't make sense for a protocol change.
I wouldn't make that blanket statement. I think I think so. The necessity for I think the problem that needs to be solved is well understood and is coming up more and more. And so folks are coming up with a bunch of creative solutions to address it. Some of them involve legal solutions to it. Some of them involves other trust-based solutions, and a protocol solution is viable as well. So I think we can definitely review the proposal and see kind of what makes sense in the long run. I'm not opposed to the idea of a protocol-based solution for something like this, but we'd have to look into the proposal in much more detail, which I think folks here can do.
Yeah, there's some additional background context that might be helpful as to why Catherine is trying to present to this meeting in particular. Her team has actually submitted 2 proposals through our dev grants process in the last couple of weeks. And both of them have sparked a lot of conversation about the line at which a protocol enhancement becomes just a functional code enhancement release with one of the implementations. When looking at the actual specs, it's been pretty difficult for us to differentiate, and we've had a lot of internal back and forth around this. Catherine, I apologize that your team has the language barrier and we weren't able to make it a little bit more accessible for you. But so that everyone...
I understand that, yeah.
Yeah, and so these proposals are both online and we can share links to them. And if anyone wants to weigh in as to whether one technical approach over another would be better, that is helpful as we decide how best to proceed with these. But also if there are other lending platforms which are helping with minor issues in particular, et cetera, if we could link those also for the notes, it may help their team follow up more specifically and distinguish their approach from what others have also made available. Cool. Great. Yep, and then both Jennifer and Catherine linked to that proposal again. And like I said, there's a second one as well. So in the follow-up meeting notes, if you're curious about some of the sector repair tools that they have proposed, you can take a look as well.
Yeah, can I have a comment about the financial plan? And here I got a feeling is about, the whole idea is actually to split the owner's responsibility. This is because that somebody may provide the financial support for one miner, but for the financial supporter, if they the supporter to own, to have the owner is and actually take too much power, perhaps about the miner. So I think the whole idea perhaps is to split the owner functionality about this. So one is about the financial part, and another is about other things. For example, to do any other things about the owner, so that the financial support could have the balance withdraw or control, and the actual owner will be perhaps to have something, some other functionality, for example, like to change worker and controller, and to do anything as the worker and controller can do. It's like this, I would think. Not sure if this is actually reflect the whole idea.
I think the meta point of right now the owner address is kind of a do all the things and have all the power, and there is a conceptual difference between managing your storage and your deals and so on, and managing finances. It's fine, obviously, that the owner address is doing both right now. Perhaps there is an argument to be made that those are separate zones of control in the concept that is a minor actor that maybe we do want to segregate. I think there's something there, but I think we'll have to review proposals in much more detail before we know.
Yeah, agreed.
Great.
Okay. Yeah, my technical team just said like, so it's more about helping small scale miners to develop some big pools, because in Chinese market there's a lot of people using Filecoin's mechanisms to do some unethical fundraising activities. As you guys talked about, like big miners, they basically own like major pools, especially in China, as far as we know. So we try to help some small miners to gather them up and try to operate and maintain their mining pools by using the financing plan.
I should point out the pool that she's describing is not the traditional pool have. Like the Venus pool is a little different. So basically this is like, we have one miner that is doing a lot of like mining operation for like people that purchase their services. That's the sort of pool that she's describing, just to be clear.
Yep. Great. And again, after the meeting, we can link directly to the proposal. So if anyone is interested in weighing in, they'll be able to do so directly. And Catherine, I'm glad you were able to present to us. Since again, there's been a lot of back and forth about this on GitHub. It's helpful to hopefully move forward with it just via the meeting.
Yeah. No
Great.
problem.
All right. Any other additional questions or comments about this before we move on? All right. Okay, and if not, then I think we had a great presentation last week about some EVM enhancements from Brooklyn, and I think Boris, who she also works closely with, you wanted to make a quick comment about dApp integrations and an enhancement you were thinking of for the future.
More like saying hello. So we do. I did end up getting a FIPS website up. We're still figuring out how it like deploys more regularly. We want to get a couple of things so that we get deploys per PR. So the domain is up here. And I've already had some requests for updates around things like math support. So I'm going to, instead of putting that in the main repo, I've got a fork of it in the application research group from Protocol Labs, open to collab, change the design, fix it. It's meant to be a utility. I did a bunch of this work with the Ethereum improvement proposal system, and also did other work with Ethereum magicians and so on. I know Eric from back in those days, and some others of you as well. Very briefly, I basically two areas that I am interested in and that we've done some work in. There isn't a generalized protocol for doing dApp sign-ins with Filecoin accounts. We have an opportunity to actually make Filecoin accounts work end-to-end. What Fission has shipped is some basically having secure Filecoin keys in the browser. And we did a proof of concept integration with Estuary. But of course, this needs to work very broadly. I've talked to Dan Finley from MetaMask. This kind of bridges dApp development and core protocol stuff. So I foresee putting some FIPS together around dApp sign-in stuff. Secondarily, we started looking around at how to do vesting on chain. And we'll do a little bit of work and come back and put in a future proposal of looking at how one might do an on-chain vesting actor. Just getting started, literally haven't dove into this. And Brooke is, of course, going to be the one that's going to be leading the R&D on that. And I'm going to be more around the gathering requirements and seeing if we can get multiple wallet implementations and others kind of working together for those sorts of things. So if anybody wants to work on any three of those things, website, dApp sign-in, or on-chain vesting actor, please get in touch. And when we have something that's meaty to share, we'll put it on agenda and then generally put it in the FIPS repo. So love to hear any feedback or thoughts on any of those topics.
Sounds good. Thanks for your interest. Thanks for your involvement in Filecoin. That's a lot that you all have moving along. It's great. And nice to have you here.
Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Boris. And of course, yeah, once you have proposals or FIP drafts or anything else you'd like to discuss, we can also bring those up in future meetings and triage them through the process, however is helpful. Any other questions for Boris or anyone else who's on the call today? All right. Well, we had a pretty packed agenda, but it looks like we may actually finish about 5 minutes earlier than scheduled. So thank you everyone for taking the time this morning.
Sorry, I did want to talk about the tie-breaking thing. I just wanted to kind of leave it for last because I thought it was less important than the others.
Oh, sure. Yeah, go ahead.
But if we do have the 5 minutes for it, let's waste those 5 minutes.
Yeah.
So this is another one of those things that, a FIP issue was opened well over a year ago and has been sitting around forever. Thanks to Kaitlin's efforts triaging those issues, a couple of these have surfaced back up and now we can get into quality of life improvements. Before we talk about it, I wanted to quickly ask, obviously the Filecoin protocol has a weight rule for how heavy a tip set is. What do implementations do right now if you have two tip sets of the same weight? How do you choose your canonical head if you have two tip sets of the same weight?
Good question. I don't think I've looked at our fork choice since we implemented it because it works.
Yeah.
So far.
So that's basically where Lotus is at as well. So I think we don't switch unless you're strictly greater, which means whichever tip set you formed first that has the weight W is the one that you'll stay with. Now this is bad, obviously, because at the end of the day you want to be achieving as much consensus as possible, so you don't want nodes to be splitting based on that. And it's also incorrect in that the Filecoin spec does at least partly specify what should be done with when you have FIPS of the same weight. So so this issue was kind of opened initially as a Lotus bug and then got bumped up to a FIP because we're maybe tweaking what the spec itself is doing. And I think none of the implementations are actually implementing the spec correctly here. The proposal, very simply, is to break based on minimum ticket in a tip set. So if you've got two different tip sets that have the same weight and have to choose one, just start comparing the smallest tickets. And so compare the two smallest tickets. And if one of them is smaller, that's your better tip set, and that's the one you choose. So that's a nice, quick, lightweight thing that gets you consensus quickly, which is all you want here is to pick something that isn't biasable, and obviously ticket is not biasable. So the proposal is mostly to do that. There's a kind of a slightly open question around what to do if the tip sets aren't of the same size, because the spec isn't super clear about this, and this is why FIP kind of fixes for it now. My proposal was, if you have two tip sets that aren't the same size, just pick the bigger one first. And if they're the same size, then you go and break by min ticket. So we can kind of discuss the details of exactly what we want to be doing in the FIP conversation, maybe. But the primary concern here is I don't think it matters. It clearly hasn't mattered for the past year. I don't think it'll matter in general, but if there is a network outage or some incident that causes the network to become super fragile, this kind of thing will exacerbate the problem, and that's kind of what we want to avoid. So might as well get it fixed and say, you know, we'll all agree on what the better tip set is that will set us our head. Yeah, any thoughts or questions?
Well, just to address your question earlier, I just looked into our code real quick. So I think we take it as long as it's greater than or equal to. So I guess whichever tip set is the latest one that we get, we will take that one. Yeah, I don't see this causing like a huge issue. Like I can see like maybe like one epoch forks or something like that. But yeah, definitely, yeah, it'd be nice to just patch that up. It also doesn't require a hard fork or anything like that. So
yeah, it's one of those interesting soft fork things, because it is the protocol you're changing, but it's not really something that's gonna need a network upgrade itself. And I guess I thought it would be a good candidate for more of this. We're improving the quality of Filecoin network upgrade, so we'll try to include it in there. Cool, that's all.
All right. And then another chance. Any other questions, comments for Aayush, for anyone else who's on the call today? Aayush, anything else you want to discuss? No. All right. Well, then we are right at time. So perfect. Again, thanks everyone for your participation. Links to all of the different proposals we discussed today are made available in the meeting notes and the agenda after the call. Again, you can find us on YouTube if you want to review anything. And if not, then we will see everyone here again in 2 weeks. Great, thank you.
bye.
Bye.